Ocean acidification can be considered the most important issue being faced today because it affects all life on Earth. Millions of years of fossil fuel reserves are quickly being burned into carbon dioxide and absorbed by the oceans as an acid. It has altered seawater chemistry, bringing harmful consequences to marine life and jeopardizing the livelihood of those that depend on the oceans for survival. This poses a risk to human security, which seeks to protect life and freedom through political, social, economic, and environmental structures.
What causes ocean acidification? Ocean acidification occurs when ocean water absorbs large amounts of carbon dioxide. The growing demand for and usage of fossil fuel energy has resulted in a drastic increase of CO2 emissions in the atmosphere. A study shown in 2012 reports there is a 1.2% increase in greenhouse gas emissions every year. Cars, airplanes, power plants, and factories all rely on fossil fuels, such as oil, coal, and gas. They are all in high demand, therefore putting immense stress on the oceans. Every day, oceans absorb 22 million tons of CO2 emissions. Another source contributing to ocean acidification is deforestation. Trees, like oceans, absorb carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. The burning of trees causes CO2 to be emitted into the atmosphere. As these trees are being destroyed, there is a subsequent decrease in the number of sources available for the absorption of carbon dioxide.
Coral reefs cover less than 1% of the ocean floor, yet are home to at least 25% of all animal life found in the oceans and make up to 60% of world fisheries. These diverse habitats are made up of tiny coral polyps that are protected by calcium carbonate exoskeletons formed under the presence of calcium and carbonate ions. Yet as CO2 is absorbed into the oceans, it forms a dilute acid that changes carbonate ions into bicarbonates. As levels of carbonate ions diminish, coral polyps lose the symbionts that give them their color and skeleton structure. Seawater is normally slightly basic, with an average pH of 8.2 closer to the ocean surface. However, carbon dioxide emissions have lowered the pH in this area by 0.1 and as a consequence made the oceans 30% more acidic. If ocean acidification continues at this rate, there is a chance we may lose entire reefs along with the millions of species that live in them. Calcifying species also struggle as their environments become more acidic. The plankton responsible for 50% of the oxygen we breathe and half the biomass produced through photosynthesis is losing the ability to create their calcium carbonate skeletons with decreasing levels of carbonate ions. Plankton levels in 8 out of 10 large ocean ecosystems have greatly diminished and have subsequently threatened marine ecosystems as they make up the base for everything in the ocean.
As previously emphasized, coral reefs are biodiversity hotspots. Some coral reefs can hold up to 1,000 species per square meter. The destruction of coral reefs affects tourism, shoreline protection, and biodiversity, which are great threats to human security, especially food and environmental security. Ocean acidification can have a huge impact on plankton, which can cause a detrimental chain reaction throughout the aquatic food web if their populations were to decline as forecasted. In turn, multi-billion-dollar commercial fisheries and shellfish industries will be affected, while threatening the food security for millions of the world's poorest populations. About 8% of the world's population is supported by these industries and would have their livelihoods seriously threatened. This is why at the heart of any human security policy framework, the UN states that protection and empowerment of people are critical to achieving the goal of human security.
So climate change, the threat to marine species through pollution and carbon, has been targeted through Kyoto Protocol, largely seen as ineffective, and the Montreal Protocol of the ozone layer, more effective since it involved true coordination between public and private interests. Climate change is more important at the poles. They're warming at a faster rate. Policy's mainly been aimed at rehabilitating the land once used, so business goes on as usual. The Antarctic Treaty and the Convention of the Conservation of the Antarctic have done this. Other important agreements have included the Protocol of the Environmental Protection, as well as UNCLOS, the 1994 Agreement of the Law of the Sea, which urges for better management of marine species. They have indirectly targeted corals and established states EZZs, and they threaten the mining profits. Western states protested, and other institutions are dealing to make the fishing industry more eco-sustainable. Pollution has been addressed through the IMO and the Convention to Prevent Pollution from Ships. This has been more effective since 1973. In terms of geopolitics, it's very challenging, but it offers many solutions. Human impact ultimately influences its security. The lack of enforcement and tools of assessment is a major problem, and the irresponsible fishing industry continues, as well as climate change. Ultimately, we need to address the dilemma between conservation and preservation. To achieve true sustained ocean's health, we need to turn towards preservation and value nature's intrinsic worth of resources. In terms of solution, cognitive knowledge needs to be raised of the ocean threats, and priority needs to be made in geopolitics, and coral reefs need to be regarded as common. There needs to be regional specific action as well as multilateral international agreements through the works of NGOs and world financiers such as the IMF and the World Bank. So there needs to be alternatives to traditional fishing methods and assessment of ecological impacts. Further, we need to limit states' EZZs and introduce policy which is better targeted to limit ocean acidification. We need to reduce pollution on a global scale, and to achieve this, we need to invest in research in development of green technology or renewable forms of energy, and value traditional ecological forms of knowledge to sustain the oceans for future generations.